Salutations, my fiendish film fanatics. I'm the Silver Screen Slasher, and welcome back to Superman. Joining me once again on this epic journey is my good buddy and fellow co-critic, the Cinemastein.
Hello,
Back.
everyone.
Now, we'll begin now. In today's review, the adventure will continue with Superman 2, the direct sequel to the original film released in 1980. In a way, this film is actually just as good as the first film, and it actually heightens the excitement even more.
Actually, just quick little add on to that. But yeah, for my at least little intro, at least on this side, my side of this video, Superman 2 is considered, at least by many fans, to be one of the absolute, or in fact, even the best Superman film out of the bunch. Even some people even consider it way better than the original. And in some respects, I can kind of see that. I mean, and I can't say I don't disagree with them either, because I feel because the characters are developed further. Superman is pretty much done in a way where I would even dare say he's almost, like more human, and I'll get into that a bit more. And it just pretty much raises up the stakes even higher.
Mm-hmm.
And another quick little history about this film, actually. In fact, um, unfortunately, for behind the scenes, let's just say things are a little complicated. Richard Donner, in fact, was originally supposed to direct it, and he did, but then Warner Brothers didn't like the way he was doing it for quite some time, so they kicked him off, and instead they got replaced him with a new director named John, I believe, John Lester or something.
Richard Lester.
Oh, that's right, Richard Lester. But yeah, and don't get me
Lester,
wrong, yeah,
Lester, in my opinion, does a pretty good job continuing on from Donna's original ideas, and in a way he makes them a little bit he adds as an thing of comedy to and basically ease up ease up between fight scenes. One last thing to note, though, there are two versions of Superman 2. There's the theatrical version, which came out in 1980. However, over 20 years after the film came out, in 2006, after Richard Donner passed, there was what's known as the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 that was released on home media. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll be using the theatrical cut of this movie to review Superman 2, and I'll do a separate video on the Richard Donner cut later on.
Yeah, speaking of, yeah, in fact, Silver, since for at least the last video, because we didn't really need to explain the plot of the original Superman. This one actually felt like we need to, obviously. So yeah, Silver, would you at least like to explain, of course, just basically the main idea of the story?
Of course, it would be my honor. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive in. The film opens with a recap of what happened on Krypton. And oh, I'm sorry, did I put in the first film again? No, my mistake. This basically shows us what happened before Krypton's destruction with the three criminals: Non, Ursa, and their leader, General Zod. The latter of which played by the remarkable Terrence Stamp, who is by far one of the best parts in the movie. They destroys basically their crime in Krypton was destroying some sort of special red crystal, and that's what got them banished to the Phantom Zone. As the opening credit let's go on, we see a montage of the events of the first film, to basically bring us up to speed. Basically, honestly, this is a good job for a recap.
Yeah, but also what I like about it is they kind of do it in a fresh and kind of new way at the same time. Like I remember they kind of told it though from a different point of view, which still makes it feel fresh, but at the same time original, of course, from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, since that's pretty much the plot, and except me just to, of course, make it a bit more simple, of course, this is pretty much the one where, of course, Superman finally goes up against, well, of course, probably, besides Lex Luthor, probably even his second most iconic and famous enemy, General Zod, obviously. Anyway, Well, now if you now at least from my side of things, I'm going to talk about well. Let's get to Soups himself, played yet again by good old Christopher Reeve. In this one, as I said before in the beginning, in fact, this one, what I actually like about Superman 2 as well, is honestly, I really do feel like they push the character development with Superman, aka Clark Kent, even further. Don't you think? Like, for example, it's not just Clark anymore, but yes, Superman is starting to getting to know Lois, and in fact, I even feel like in this film, unlike no offense to the original, he seems honestly even at times even a bit more human in this one that I think. So what I'm trying to say is he's in a way as well trying new things, doing new things, and it's doing what a good superhero film or even any franchise when it has a main character and they want to develop them more. Well, yeah, it does things that honestly I think a sequel is supposed to do. Like, and what I also like is that yeah they push the character of Superman even further. Like they develop him even further, and that's what I love about it. What do you say about this, Silver?
I honestly think that in the pushing of character development for both Clark and Superman in this movie is actually done pretty well. However, they're the same for Lois's dickishness could not be said. He said the same thing.
Actually, I was about to get to that. Lois, by the way, is played as well yet again by Margot Kidder. Although I'm just saying, I actually kind of feel like even though there are times where it can maybe get a bit dumb, if with, at least with certain scenes, with Lois, but in this one, still feel like she's a bit more developed as well. Like I feel like she takes more risks and she's more feistier than ever. And still, unlike of course in the original where I just thought she was fine, this one actually kind of liked her a bit more. So I felt like they made her a bit more likable in this film as well.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't. That's not to say she has her dumb moments. For example, when she's when Clark when they're both at Niagara Falls and she suspects that Clark and Superman are the same, she willingly throws herself up over Niagara Falls just to try and trick Clark into turning into Superman. And I mean, seriously, that's just a dumb idea.
Yeah, really, like even risking literally your own life, just to find out that he's Superman. Like, okay, I love the amount of dedication there, but at times I felt like her dedication honestly was a bit too far.
Yeah, honestly, I think she was being a bit too relentless in trying to prove the whole Clark Kent is Superman thing. Anyway,
Anyway,
a
next
ba-
section, at least for the characters, the last person, of course, I want to talk about is General Zod and his goons. Boy, unlike Lex Luthor, who I guess was, more of a guy who kind of messes with you, if like mentally in a way, General Zod is the opposite. He will pretty much mentally mess with you, like, or sorry, no, not mentally. I mean physically hurt you, because of course, unlike Lex Luthor, he's pretty much just like Superman. He has pretty much similar strength, powers, you name it. So what I'm trying to say is, him and his goons are more stronger, more threatening, and more power hungry, to be exact.
mm-hmm.
And what's worse is, just remember, Soups, of course, is he's a loner, of course, but General Zod, oh, he has a bit of backup with him. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to say is, Superman has to deal with three to be exact, which ups the challenge even more, and of course makes the stakes even higher for him.
Yeah. Uh, Basically, they think of humans as a weak, a puny ant colony, and themselves as the big menacing boots.
In fact,
And
there's one scene in the movie where they even literally say this to describe us as humans. Um, they pretty much, I think I'm right. They said something like, General Zod and Ursa or something. You said where they were like, he cares for them almost like dogs or something. I think they said.
mm-hmm. Uh, and even though I mentioned them last time, I think I want to go over each of these characters as individually. Zod, and who I mentioned, played by Terrence Stamp, and is the leader of them all and the most ruthless of them all. Oh, well, and to be honest, I find him one of the more intimidating in characters is in Superman 2. Then you have his lackeys, starting with the only a female of the group, Ursa, played by Sarah Douglas. Yes, honestly, I thought she was kind of awesome.
Me too. In fact, I kind of found her cool. Although, no offense, but the character, of course, in this trio that I honestly kind of found now quite a bit of a stereotype nowadays, and of course, even a bit, well, more of the, um, no offense, crappy one of the group, and, anyway, still not the very good one of the group, is pretty much I don't know his name, but yeah, pretty much the muscle of the group.
Ah, yes, None, played by Jack O'Halloran, and who is described as, quote, as without thought as he is without voice. Basic, Basically, he's the muscle of the trio.
Yeah, of course, I'm sure the actor is a decent guy in real life, but yeah, just, of course, the character that he plays in this. Obviously, if you can guess now, in a modern audience nowadays, anyway, characters like that in movies or books or whatever, they're pretty much a stereotype. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, basically the strong, silent stereotype.
yeah, or sort of like kind of stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, have we not evolved from the Frankenstein's of the 30s?
Yeah, for an for an example, why let's just say yeah, what's maybe great about maybe Solomon Grundy nowadays is that he's a bit more intelligent nowadays.
Hmm. I
But
feel
yeah,
like I kind of feel like we should get back to the plot of this film, just
well,
to make
not
a bit
really
more
to the
sense.
plot now because we kind of really explained it now, but
Well,
oh, one quick thing as well. I also want to mention that another thing actually besides Lois is ridiculous dedication at times. But one of the other few scenes, even still to this day, that I find a bit goofy in this film, is the scene where, of course, as soon as General Zod and his goons break out of the Phantom Zone, he yells this out loud. And I'm like, okay.
uh, no, no, he doesn't. Not in this version.
Oh well, still. Anyway, in one of
That
the
that's in the Richard Donner.
well, yeah,
Trust
still.
me, trust me. I'll make a mockery of that at another time.
Well, yeah, still. The Donner cut though, when I saw that version of him doing that, I honestly thought it was pretty goofy, even just not the way he said, not just the way he said it, but even just the face expression he makes. It sounds and looks so goofy.
Yeah, and to be fair, the again, I'll do a scene by scene comparison in the Donner Cut review. Anyway, one of the things to note is eventually, later on in the movie, Clark is forced to reveal to Lois that he is Superman and takes her to his Fortress of Solitude, where, wanting to be more human, goes into a chamber which removes his powers. And this I actually found to be one of the more interesting parts of the film.
In fact, because what I especially liked about the diner scene, of course, if you not to really spoil it, but all I can say is when when you see the scene, it's actually very new and something I never thought I would ever see done with Superman. And honestly, I like that in a way because the only way I can maybe say it without, of course, too much of a spoiler is that he experiences new things as pretty much a person, I guess you could say, of course, in everyday life. He experiences things that he never got to experience before, and of course until now. And that's what I like about it, is all that in a way they're trying sort of new things as Superman, and also I feel like at times taking risks with this. And honestly, I think they pay off really well. Now, if, now actually a little bit of a side note that I want to get off to. This film actually at times even just by in fact looking at and watching some of the scenes, like let's just say the White House scene, and yeah, the broadcast scene, and so on and so forth. And in fact, even the Zod, his goons killing the astronauts. Seems like that. In fact, I thought this one is always a bit more dark, don't you, Silver? Just by some of the things that happen in
Yeah,
the film.
yeah, I agree. Whenever the Trinity of Zod, which is my what I call them, are on screen, I always feel like the movie it takes a bit of a darker tone, and it honestly makes sense. And Superman wasn't always just lighthearted and goofy. He had darker moments at best.
Like, for example, probably one of my absolute favorite dark scenes still ever is the one where Ursa pulls the pretty much the life, support off one of the astronauts. And what's even more messed up, right, is he's struggling, of course, with breathing, but as he's struggling, she even kicks him quite a few feet away. And I'm like, gee, he's dying already. And you just to finish him off, you just kicking really hard.
Like I
Wow.
mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, Ant Boot.
This just shows you how power hungry they all are together.
What's a bit more interesting is the fact that over time, and, and especially with how arrogant they are, they find out in their in the use of their powers kind of boring after a while. Oh, and it's not until Superman actually shows up for to fight them that's more of a challenge.
Yeah, it's almost like as well as they have so much by using these deadly powers of theirs that they get bored even after using it quite a while if they don't at least have a real challenge. In fact, another thing that swinging on now to get off to another thing about the film. Here's in fact though another thing about the film. I say at least nowadays, of course, back then would have looked good, but yeah, we look at it nowadays, it doesn't really look that great. But let's admit the effects, at least for this film, don't really hold up that well nowadays. I mean, even I look at some of them, at least mostly the flying, effects. I look at them now; they're all right. They're not really one of the ones, unfortunately, that didn't at least hold up well today.
Mm-hmm. And, and this brings me to my next point of the film, and probably one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most boring characters, underrated use of a character in the movie, Lex Luthor, played again by Gene Hackman. I just
Yeah,
find his inclusion, in a word, unnecessary.
yeah, you're kind of right about that. I kind of felt like that in this film, he was kind of there for no reason, really.
Yeah, I guess in a way, it was just a movie being smug and saying, "Hey, I'm Lex Luthor. I'm still here."
Yeah, pretty much. Now, actually, in fact, the next thing I want to get onto, at least from my side of things, is the facts. First off, is that back, of course, when the Richard Donner cut, in fact, at least a bit before it came out, people, in fact, originally at least started spreading theories on possibly how much he shot, at least of his version. And their guess was 75% of the film. Next fact. Back when this film, of course, was still pretty much being made and everything, and after Donner was kicked off, um, Richard Lester had to literally reshoot at least quite a few of the scenes so he could at least get full credit as director.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Next is in fact the music score. Originally, the music score was supposed to be done by the great John Williams,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason why he didn't do it is because he felt like the film was more Donna's film, so he didn't really want to do it after all. And he felt like it was his, so he just didn't really feel like doing it after that.
Ouch.
Yep. Next is, in fact, when people heard about this, that Donna was not in the director's chair anymore, people were furious.
At
Um,
first,
yeah, at first, but when they heard that then Richard Lester was the new director, it's like they didn't, of course, like pretty much boo him or whatever for it, because in fact at the time he was still a pretty respected filmmaker himself. They just was a bit more let down, really, but they still liked Richard Lester's version. Next is another thing though that I must say, well, at least one of the few things I love about Richard Lester though when he directed this film, at least anyway, one of the versions I should say anyway, uh, is that he in fact he wasn't honestly a fan of Superman like at all. But do you know what he did? I like how he wasn't another one of those stereotypical directors where they at least make a film that they're not really even that passionate about and don't decide to really focus on that much, great details. Well, in fact, of course, as we can all tell, it was the opposite for him. Just because he didn't like it didn't mean he wanted to do his homework pretty much. So what I'm trying to say is he still paid respect to the original source material anyway. And you know what? I honestly really damn appreciate that from him.
hell
Um,
yeah.
And the last thing I want to mention is that, well, yeah, of course, originally, because still there are at least a few moments in this film where it still is kind of lighthearted. But anyway, still, I heard that this film was supposed to be even much darker than it was before, at least in Donna's version. But of
Hmm.
course, as you all know, that never happened. And that for the facts, that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I'm glad you got that off your chest. One thing I should note though, is in single a line, and I know is during the Trinity of Zod's invasion of the White House. Basically, uh, I forgot to mention this, but Luther in the earlier scene escaped from prison with the help of his ex-girlfriend, Eve Tessmacher. And eventually, somehow they managed to track all of Superman's flight patterns back to where his Fortress of Solitude was, and eventually they discovered who and all of his secrets, blah blah blah, yada yada. The point is, they eventually follow Zod, Ursa, and Non to the White House, and he tells them that Superman is the son of Jor-El, their jailer, and the person who let get them locked up. And basically, he'll tell them where Superman is in exchange for control of Australia, of all places.
Okay, weird. But
I
anyway,
know.
I would have at least maybe thought maybe the world or something. But anyway, um, now actually one quick thing as well I wanted to mention as well. One of the few things, though, at least because I even recently, at least on YouTube, was able to watch quite a few clips of Superman 2, Richard Donner's version. Uh, but one of the, at least a few things that I really like about the Donner cut, which I always still thought was great, was they feature more character development with, of course, with Superman and Marlon, good old Marlon Brando as Clark Kent. I mean, no, sorry, not as Clark Kent. I mean, Jor-El, my bad. But still, that's just great. More Marlon Brando, even. Yes.
Although for some reason,
What I also learned about the Donner version as well is that I heard at least of course, in the original version of Superman 2, there was some like details or whatever missing. So I heard those little details were filled in the Donner version as
mm,
well. So that's another great thing to note about it.
yeah, I agree. Eventually, yeah, later on, when Clark discovers his, his Zod and his friends and are going to find him, he basically finds a Deus Ex Machina in the form of a green crystal and gets his powers back.
Although, if you don't mind, but just to skip ahead of quite a bit, how about we talk about now the last few minutes of the film,
Of
the
course,
climax, to be exact.
of course. After, of course, after I mentioned was by far the best line in the movie. Yeah, basically Neo before Zod. That is my favorite line of the movie.
Yep.
And, and now we're just gonna skip ahead into the end of the movie. So, if you haven't seen the movie, this is your spoiler warning. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So pretty much our last few minutes takes place in the Fortress of Solitude. It's at that moment where all is lost because, by the way, Zod and his goons pretty much, I guess you could sort of say, accompanied by Lex Luthor himself, but yeah, hold Lois Lane hostage and pretty much force Superman to go in his little chamber thingy, whatever, to pretty much become weaker. But instead, here's the smart thing: he actually triggers the opposite. In fact, in his like little tube thingy, whatever, anyway, that he drains his power, that he's supposed to drain his powers from, in fact, actually boosts up his strength, like gives him powers, and instead outside makes Zod and his goons weaker. So he pretty
Um,
much
to be, I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm gonna correct you on some points. To be more accurate, that chamber basically exposed Superman to red sunlight, which to a Kryptonian makes their body's density a lot weaker. But in other words, he reversed the polarity, and the chamber protected him, while the rest of the fortress was exposed to red sunlight, making Zod, Ursa, and Non all weaker.
Yep. So um he pretty much throws Zod off and pretty much even I guess you could, by the looks of things, breaks his hand even and kills Zod. But also what I in a way the find there maybe one funny thing there about this ending and kind of in a way a bit more goofy is that I forgot what's the big strong one's name? He
Non.
not he even tries to look like he tries to tackle Superman or whatever, but he realizes he can't fly and he's like, oh crap, and he just falls anyway. Like
Actually, he attempts to fly, but just falls.
I know, like don't you think just out of all the deaths at least for the trio, I thought his was the most hilarious. He
Oh,
barely even got to do anything.
not to mention earlier when Superman threw his S shield at him.
Yep. Oh, and now Ursa, well, of course, like she in fact said a bit earlier on to Superman in the film, now you wouldn't hit a lady, wouldn't you? So instead, what do you do? Lois pretty much instead says, as well, one of my absolute favorite lines, at least in this movie, just at least my favorite way that she says it, "You're a real pain in the neck," and then boom, punches Ursa right in the face and pretty much killing Ursa. And
Bye
then
bye.
and that's pretty much the end of Superman 2. Oh, and unfortunately there was well,
Not exactly though. You're forgetting one crucial thing. Lois still knows Superman's secret, and so just oh, the movie actually ends on a very one of the weirdest moments ever. Superman's memory erasing kiss.
okay.
Basically,
Uh,
he kisses Lois Lane, and all her memories of Clark Kent being Superman, poof, gone.
Wouldn't in fact I'm not gonna lie, I actually find that honestly kind of silly though, at least that little moment there. And I'll tell you why, of course, out of all the powers that I knew that Superman had, so most of my women are still, like believable, I guess, in a way. Like
Yeah,
these to be the most like natural, but
yeah.
that
Chalk
one,
that up. Yeah,
that one's
just
just plain stupid. Like Louis, that is plain stupid.
chalk that up to Richard Lester's this form of comedy. More on that in Superman 3.
And in fact, what's also in a way a bit more dumb about it is, well, it literally makes no sense. I'm not kidding. It literally makes no sense. I mean, just think about it for a minute.
Mm-hmm. And so the movie ends with Superman and flying out into space and smiling for the camera once again. And that is the theatrical version of Superman 2.
Anyway, for my at least last few final thoughts on the film, yeah, to me, in my opinion, Superman 2 is not only, of course, um, a great sequel, but to me, in my opinion, I think it's actually a better sequel. Don't get me wrong, still, I like the original. I still think the original is good in its own right, but man, number two, it really, of course, raised the stakes even higher, and of course, pushed the character development, and in fact, I would even dare say, drama of the struggles of being a hero, and in general, pretty much balancing your daily life. Anyway, all that good stuff, right? They all do it so well, and of course the action is bigger. In fact, because in the original as well, there wasn't really that many action, but still a fair amount at least. But yeah, there's more action, bigger sets. I would even dare say, if I'm right, and still bigger everything, and still anyway, great. Anyway, a lot of great stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, Superman 2, my rating for it is actually a 9 out of 10, because the reason why I as well give it that, still, as I said before, there are some moments in the film, well, meant that I kind of at least bit more goofy, or in fact, even just honestly, just plain stupid. And that
Hmm.
Superman 2, though, oh, truly, probably in my opinion, at least out of all the, Donna, as I like to say, Superman films, the best film of the series, for sure.
I honestly see Superman 2 as the second best. I still say the first one is my favorite, but I can understand where you're coming from, Stein. I will admit, this movie it takes a limit. It takes the boundaries of Superman and, and one and just break so many good ways with a few silly moments. Given and that Richard Lester is mostly known for comedic films. I think. All in all, though, Superman 2 is it was more Earth Tales was from the first one, and it doesn't have some improvements. I also give it a 9 out of 10. And next time, which will be when the both of us are together, we'll be reviewing Superman 3. But remember, in 2 days from now, I will be doing a solo review of the Richard Donner Cut Superman 2. So keep your eyes out for that, folks. Until next time, I'm the Silver Screen Slasher,
And I'm the Cinemastein.
and remember,